Hello, my name is Miriam, and during 2020, when I was losing my mind over COVID and the possibility of forced vaccines, and whilst our family was starting to be swallowed by an ideology, I decided to try and find out what happened to Valerie Hayes. Why did she end up in jail for kidnapping and attempted murder? How did she go from being a domestic abuse victim to being a scary felon? So let me start right back at the beginning. And here's my story of how it all happened. I can't get rid of these. I don't know how to do that, so I'm very sorry. It's reflecting back on me and it's very distracting. Anyway, so how did it all start? Okay, so I received a Facebook message from my friend who I've worked with her before and with helping families or women in distress, that kind of thing. And she told me about this girl who was trying to flee domestic abuse in America. She told me her name was Valerie. She said, hold on, is there a way to pause? I don't think there is. Okay, never mind. Anyway, she asked me if I want to be part of this group helping this girl who was fleeing domestic abuse. So I joined a Facebook group that had already started, and it was full of some people who were discussing what to do with this woman, Valerie. She was living in Washington at that point, I think, and she was looking to leave the country as quickly as possible because her husband, this is what we were told, her husband was like a high up military intel person, and he had like contacts, and so it's such a crazy story. It's really hard to know where to start, or where to even go. Okay, so we have this group. We're talking about what we're going to do and how we're going to help this woman. She's in there. Oh, I think it might have been a messenger thing to start with, and then we moved it to a group. Anyway, she started to tell us about what had happened for her with her husband. She was saying that she had been, violently attacked. She'd been brutally assaulted, really, really nasty, nasty stuff. We started up a GoFundMe, which had the full story of what she alleged happened, which I will read out at some point. It's quite long and really quite horrible. So that's basically how it started. She needed a place to run. She needed a place to for refuge. She needed help, and there were all these women in this group offering help, and it was discussed. So she wanted to claim asylum. She basically wanted to claim asylum for domestic abuse, and she was going to come to England and do that. She was going to go through the proper channels. She was going to go to like a detention centre called Yarlswood Detention Centre, which is for I think it's for women coming in from other countries who are they're coming in for different reasons, for domestic abuse, fleeing violence, war, all sorts of things, and they're all in there to decide what's going to happen with them, refugees and it's everyone. So So that was what was decided she was going to do. These lights are so distracting. Sorry. Okay, so we're in this group, we're talking about the terrible stuff that she's been going through and what we need to do to help her. And it was talked about coming to Scotland because Scotland has a very good reputation for looking after refugees, for looking after people who are in need of help, you know, who come into the country and have issues like Valerie did, like fleeing domestic abuse, pretty violent domestic abuse. So it was decided that she would come to Scotland because they had these really good laws, and I said, well, you know, she can come and stay with me. So that was like the next step. We said, okay, she should come to Glasgow. I can help her out. We can help her find somewhere to live. We can get her in touch with people. I know people. I've got my sister-in-law is she's a lawyer. She's a humanitarian, what do you call it, immigration and asylum lawyer. So she was seeking asylum in Scotland for domestic abuse. Everything, you know, that's what it was, and it didn't seem unusual because, you know, we've dealt with women in that situation in the past, and you know, it happens to a lot of women. So we're discussing what to do, and that was round about, let me just check. So I've got a whole thing here of what I know about what happened. I'll just read it because it'll be a bit easier for me as well, because it's my first video. Okay. I became involved when a long-term friend asked if I could help a woman fleeing an abusive relationship. A group of us who had worked on a previous case a few years back where a mother required help got together on Messenger, and we worked out the best way to help Valerie. She had decided to come to Scotland and claim asylum through Yarlswood. We organised a train ticket for her to come and stay at my home while she was doing this, as we concluded that a vulnerable victim of abuse should not be alone in the asylum seekers accommodation in Glasgow, because it's pretty dodgy. I didn't know Valerie at all until she arrived in Scotland, and she came to my home in May 2014. Before that, she had been staying in Reading, and after being in Yarlswood Detention Centre, and then she stayed with a woman in Reading for a bit. So that's the basis of how she ended up arriving in my home. It was on the back of fleeing a domestic abuse, a violent, terrible man, from what she told us, and that was the start of it. So May 2014, Valerie Hayes arrives at my door.